Hi, I'm Rachel with Stirring the Deep, and this is the next instructional lesson in a series that I'm doing called Stir the Deep with Me. Today I'm going to be talking about the structure of the Word. Because when we come to the Word and it's just us and God's words, we're like, wow, this is challenging to read. I can't understand this. Look at the way that it's written. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to me. And that can often just be a prohibitor of us moving forward and persisting in God's Word. So I want to address that. The Word is written the way that it is for a reason. And it's multiple reasons, but one of the main ones is that at any one time, the truth is to be revealed to some and not to others, or at certain times and not other times. And even to be revealed to everybody at a certain time or not. So I may be in a certain situation in my life and God's revealing certain truths for me, but other things that He's hiding for now because I need to learn something first. It may be like a prophecy where no one can know that because God doesn't want anybody to understand that yet. But later He will reveal it. So the way the Word is structured allows Him to accomplish all these goals. And the fact is, without the Spirit, we can't understand anything anyway. It takes the Spirit of God in us to understand spiritual truths. The carnal mind cannot know them, as the Word tells us. So it's really the Spirit that teaches us. So it's exciting because when you start seeing God reveal this Word to you, that at one point you didn't understand, it's just a tremendous feeling because you feel His work, you feel His instruction and His guidance. So let's talk about a couple of those ways that He reveals and conceals. The first is symbolism. So almost everything in the Bible is symbolic. Numbers have another meaning, places, people's names, things like bread and basket and wine and hands and head and trees. So almost everything has and points to another deeper spiritual truth. And that's how that Word is eternal, because it holds spiritual truths. And you have these physical things that help us to understand that. It's just like in this world. God constructed this world to teach us about Him. That's why there's men and women and families and children and fathers and the structure that we have and authorities, because it's to teach us about Him and our relationship to Him. And the Word is the same way. It has all this structure and this symbolism for a reason. And as we dive into it, it just reveals more of who He is and what His will is. And that's what the Spirit reveals to you. And as you're reading the entire Word, and that's why it's so important to read the entire Word, because something in one book will help to explain something else in another book. And that's how symbolism works. The next one is parables. And Jesus, He said, when He spoke to the masses, He always spoke in parables, so that certain truths were hidden, but yet to His disciples who came seeking to know the truth from Him, they were revealed. So parables are a very effective way to reveal certain truths and yet hide others. And He uses those often. And so it's not just the parables that Jesus spoke, but even the stories in the Bible that happened served as a parable to teach a deeper truth. The next point is rightly dividing the Word. And by that, it means taking a verse here and connecting it to a verse here. So the Bible is not a linear format. It's all mixed up and it all fits together. And so rightly dividing Word is putting those and dividing it and putting it together. And the Spirit does that for you. You'll be reading a passage and like, oh, this reminds me of this over here. That's the Spirit leading you. You go over here and you start seeing the connection. And that's rightly dividing the Word. The next point is this layer upon layer. So you have this physical layer of the stories and the events and things that happened, but you also have another layer of spiritual truth that's referring to. And there may be several layers of that. And that's where the symbolism kind of helps take you down into those different layers with the Spirit's guidance. And so it's not like you just know a passage and, well, I know what that means. No, I mean, there's no end to this. I mean, think of how complex God is. I mean, you can see that just from his world and his creation. How much more his word. And that's why we need his Spirit to guide us on this journey and through his word. But it's layer upon layer. So you can read that book maybe the 10th, 15th time, and you may get something completely new out of it, because that's how it works. The last point is general and specific revelation. Now, there's a general revelation where God is revealing his truth to everybody. And it's true for everybody, and truth is truth, right? And so this certain passage is something that it holds the truth for everyone. Now, there can also be the case where it's more a specific use of that verse, so that God is using it in your life to direct you or guide or confirm something that he's been telling you. So, for example, I was going through a time in my life where I was doing what I felt like God wanted me to do, but it was way outside my comfort zone, and I had doubts about it. And so I started to go back the other way, and just like, God, I really need to know. That next morning in my quiet time, as I was reading my passage for that day, this verse just completely stood out to me. It's like huge spotlights are on one verse. You know, you're reading along, it's like, whoa. And it was all about, I need to complete the work that I started a year ago. Paul was telling that to Timothy. You need to finish what you started a year ago. And I felt like God was telling that right to me. I was like, you know what? That's what I need to do. And that's what I mean by specific revelation. That's not changing the truth. It's not relative truth. It's just God using a verse for a very specific situation in our life to guide and to counsel us. So those are some of the ways that God hides his word, but also reveals his word. And it's extremely exciting to see the Spirit start to unpack this, start to create and to fit this big puzzle all together for you. And I don't want you to get overwhelmed by these things, because you have the Spirit to teach you all things. Just trust him to guide you on this journey, and he will lead you on it. And he will reveal these things to you as you need to know them. But just know that this is some of the stuff that he's going to use to instruct and lead you. Until next time, keep stirring the deep, because it's the one thing that changes everything else.